Interesting. Okay, I think we'll get started. This is session number 7. It's the last day of our Share Fair that Brian and I co-organized. This is the 3rd time we've done the Share Fair, and so excited to have Joanie. She was actually helping us with our last Share Fair, doing something totally different, but she volunteered to share something that I'm really excited about, and I know when I was tweeting it, this is the one that got the most Twitter attention, and so I feel like it's a big deal to have Joanie on our workshop again. And so I think with that, Joanie, I'm just going to let you take over the time, the next hour, however you like, and I'll try and help. If questions come in, it's hard to kind of talk and look at the chat at the same time, so we'll try and help you out. Take it away, Joanie.
Okay, thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciate it. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous for some reason. I like the whole Zoom environment and trying to figure out like how to make this interactive. I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if this works. So like, just bear with me because I'm going to try to do a little bit of interactive things during this. I think I need to be a co-host so I can share my presentation.
You should be able to have.
You should be able to, but I will make you a co-host. That way you don't have to worry about
permissions.
I
don't see I can.
Yeah,
sorry, I don't see
that's
the
right.
option.
I will do that right now.
Cool, there it is. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so let's begin. All right, hello. Yes, so I am Joanie Keene, and thank you for being here this morning. I am a PhD candidate in my 4th year at Texas A&M University in Dr. Ed Varga's lab. I'm also a contributing member of Ask an Entomologist. Ask an Entomologist is a social media outreach and science communication project that's aimed at answering people's questions about general insect biology or more complicated stuff if they happen to ask in terms of like physiology, ecology, behavior, and so on. I also research interactions between the red imported fire ant Solenopsis invicta and the fire ant decapitating fly Pseudactyon curvatus. Particularly, I'm interested in the molecular basis of host manipulation because these decapitating flies are parasitoids of fire ants and they can manipulate their behavior. So I'm interested in the genetic basis of that. So here's a picture I took this summer of a Pseudactyon curvatus female getting ready to lay an egg in a fire ant. So it's pretty neat stuff. But I'm also really interested in informal STEM education and science communication. Oh, can I not move? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So what does extension mean to me? I'm not an extension agent, but many of the principles used by extension agents are important to me, particularly education and outreach. So I've done outreach for a number of years. I was involved with outreach during my undergraduate at the University of Central Florida. Then I continued into my master's in entomology at the University of Georgia, and now here during my PhD at Texas A&M. I was the outreach coordinator at Texas, in the Texas A&M entomology department for 2 years. And that involved going to community schools and 4-H and other events like museum events to talk about insects to the general public. And this led me to informal STEM education and science communication by developing educational and SciComm tools, because I came to realize that the more and more that I was doing outreach, the more I felt like I needed to have more aim and direction in what I was doing, because I was actually interested in what people were getting from it and what I was getting from it as a scientist. So this has me thinking about who my audiences are and developing certain goals for communicating my science and other science to members of the general public. So for effective science outreach and science communication, a more scientific approach can benefit science outreach and science communication. So what I mean by this is that more directed outreach is needed for a variety of reasons. One that we can all think about is funding. So thinking about the broader impacts for the National Science Foundation. Also, there's just a need for more outreach in general, particularly in areas like molecular biology. Ecology and behavioral biologists are twice as likely to be active in outreach than are molecular biologists within the life sciences. And just in general, like helping the public make informed decisions about science is just more and more needed these days. So I have been working on this, and I have a chapter in my dissertation that is about science communication using informal STEM education. And what I've learned by doing this is that, not that I ever thought that it would be easy, but it's really complex. It's more complex than I originally imagined, because it's interdisciplinary, meaning that lots of areas of education, social science, psychology, and communications are like all kind of wrapped up in this. So I did a lot of reading in these areas. I have an amazing committee member, Dr. Rhonda Strimminger, who is done amazing work with outreach and informal STEM education. And I have been thinking a lot about developing a SciComm project with a framework for effective science outreach. So to do this, if one of the things you have to do when you are wanting to do scientific research with outreach, if you want to publish your findings, is you have to go through the institution review board. So it's called IRB. You have to do like training, and people have to review your research to make sure you're not harming your participants. And if any of you guys are interested in this process and you want to do this kind of research, please don't hesitate to ask me questions about the IRB process, because it is different from what we're used to as scientists. So for my project, it greatly changed because of COVID-19. Well, not greatly, but it definitely changed, and it changed the way that I thought about it, because for my front-end evaluation, I was going to our physical locations, like varying social economic groups, to survey folks. But after COVID-19 happened, I could no longer do it in person, obviously, and my survey moved to online. So I got an amendment on my IRB in May, and I've been surveying folks online, and it's presented some challenges, but it's also given me some interesting insight, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So by identifying groups for outreach via front-end evaluation, you can identify audience characteristics and understand their beliefs and values, which will aid in framing your messages accordingly. In science communication, framing is something that we use. So this can help with that, so that you don't put out a message that will have negative impacts that you didn't intend. So with guided framework, you can have better SciComm. So this figure here, I'm not going to go completely into it, but I just want to show you that there are resources that show framework for effective science outreach, and this is from Varner 2014. And if any of you guys are interested in any of the papers I referred to or anything like that, also please feel free to reach out to me and I can forward them to you. But yeah, looking at this framework here, you don't have to follow every single step on here, but the main idea is that you follow these three main steps, which is development, implementation, and evaluation. So what I'm mostly talking about now, and what we'll get into today, is this development stage. And front-end evaluation is looking at number 3 here, which is tailoring to a specific public. So you want to know you want to see what they know, what they value, and maybe like find some common ground with them. And through that, you can implement a project and then evaluate your project. So what exactly is front-end evaluation? Front-end evaluation lays the foundation for making informed decisions when developing a program. So you're gathering information on a target audience. So you may have an audience in mind, or maybe you don't have an audience in mind, and you're basically putting out kind of like feelers to see what people know or maybe don't know. And you gather this information from various audience by asking them questions about their experiences, their beliefs, their general knowledge, get at what their motivations for learning are, and maybe concerns. And you can collect information and data in a variety of ways. You can get creative with this. You don't have to necessarily do a survey, but a survey is really practical, and it's something that you can use to get some measurements and statistics for. So like demographics and that sort of thing. So front-end evaluation has this question typology. There are 6 different question types that you can use to gain this information on audience. Type 1 is getting at what the audience already knows. Type 2 is gaining information about a particular situation. So what is occurring within your population. Type 3 is seeking proof of what the audience already knows. So think test type questions. These questions have a right and a wrong answer. And I've seen that some people get a little intimidated by these, but as long as you just, say, no, I want to see what you think and what you know, they seem to be a little bit more comfortable with them. And then type 4 is asking for feelings about a certain situation or subject. And type 5 are questions that seek for discrepancy. So you're trying to get at why there is a knowledge gap. You can combine type 4 with other type questions to get this knowledge gap. And then type 6 is just demographic information. So I want to go ahead, and I was going to try to poll the room, but I couldn't figure out how to do the polling thing on my Zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and ask y'all, what do you know about front-end evaluation? So I know I already went over it, but I'm curious to see what you guys know about it. And you can go ahead and in the chat, you can put what you know, and then maybe some of y'all could chime in with your video if you'd like. Okay, Karen says, I've been doing front-end evaluation without knowing I was doing front-end evaluation. See, that is something now, like you can put a name to what it is and be directed to some literature on it. Erin said, open-ended questions are more time-consuming to summarize. Yes. Informal Science is a fantastic resource. Yes, it is. So a lot of my information comes from informalscience.org. It has a lot of great resources, and some of that is in my resource packet. Let's see here. You have just taught me everything I need to know. Yeah, I know. I realized that as I did this, and I should have had it first, but I guess like that would be an example of let's just pull up I'll go ahead and put the slides back. So yeah, this is an example of, so basically I just wanted to use this as an example of a type 1 question, which is what you know about front-end evaluation. So I'm gathering what you already know, getting some baseline information. Of course, in this situation, I taught you guys some stuff before I went to it, but it's an example of seeing what you know. Or now, by showing you this, I've seen what you taught me something, right? I think that you learned that you can put a name to something, like Karen was saying with that she was doing front-end evaluation without realizing that's what it was called. So my next example here, I have a snippet from my survey. So my survey is gaining adult perspectives on genetically modified organisms, particularly genetically modified insects, and also trying to gain some insight on omics. So here I have some questions. And I was just wondering if any of you guys want to take a shot at guessing what type of questions these are. So here I have, a genetically modified organism is an organism that has been injected with superior genetic information, any organism whose genetic material has been directly altered, any organism that has been genetically manipulated via radiation, and then finally a mutated organism with unstable DNA. Now, yeah, so this question, it has one correct answer. And yeah, and then I have 2 other ones here that also have one correct answer. So does anyone have a guess? Type 3, yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is an example of type 3, definitely. So think science exams from high school. These are trying to see what the audience knows. And you can combine these questions with type 5, which is trying to seek for discrepancy on a knowledge gap. So now I'd like to do something else. I have a question here posed for y'all, which is, what does extension mean to you? So if you guys could go to this link here, I put it in the chat, and we're going to create a word map here, or a word cloud. I forget what it's called, but if y'all could go here, and let me share this screen with y'all in a second. So maybe I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to fill in that link. I think you can put up to 3 things if you want. You can only put 1 if you wish to, but okay, cool. We're having lots of good feedback here. Okay, so can everyone see my, I'm kind of like, can everyone see my screen here for the
Yep.
word map? Yeah, okay, cool, thank you. I'm like, I realized I should have had my—
Sorry, I was like scrambling for my mute button. Where's my mute button? Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay,
Yep.
great. So yeah, what does extension mean to you? Everyone's saying outreach. Oh, not everyone, but people are replying. A lot of people are saying communication, education, translation. So these are some of the main things that we're seeing people put in here. We also have things like knowledge, service, external bridge, impact, relationship, training, synthesis, connection. Yeah, so this is great, and it's showing that a lot of us really value communication and education, which are core components to extension. So this would be, does anyone want to take a guess at like what type of question this is? It's okay if you don't want to. Okay, type 1. Yeah, you could. It can be a little tricky. So what I was going for here was, I'm sharing my screen. I should have had my dual monitor. Is my PowerPoint shared? Can someone tell me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is a type 4 question. What does it mean to you? I'm asking for feelings about extension through inquiring on a personal meaning of extension, but one could argue that this is also a type 1 question, which is gaining your knowledge about extension. So sometimes it's not always clear, but the more clear that you can be when you're developing questions, the better, the type of information that you can get, which can be valuable. So for example, by me doing this, I can see where everyone stands on thinking about this type of presentation and this type of work, which is connection, right? Communication. So for a survey, for doing surveys, like this is one way that you can do front-end evaluation, and it's generally thought of as like a 3-step process. So designing your survey, administering your survey, and analyzing your survey data. So when you're designing your survey, this takes some time, thinking about the types of questions that you want, how you're going to engage people. You also want to do little sessions with your peers to get input on your questions, because sometimes you might put out something that you didn't intend to put out, like that you didn't realize that could be harmful, or something that's not even useful. And when you're designing surveys, you really want them to be concise, because if you have too many questions, people can get survey fatigue. And then administering your survey, that can take some time too, deciding how you want to go about it. Like, do you want to do in person? Do you want to do SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, and figuring out how to do that? And then finally, analyzing your survey data, which can take some time sifting through all of your information. So we're going to go ahead. I have this source here that I want to use, which is Colley and Rhine, 2009. It's basically, it's a good resource for designing the survey, and it's what I used when I was designing my survey. So let's go ahead and share that screen. So this is a PDF here about designing a survey. So as I mentioned before, I use this while designing my survey. And I can send this to you guys if you'd like it as a resource. So why survey? It's an efficient way to collect information about a large group of people. It's flexible. You can, ask whatever types of questions you want to gain what, types of knowledge. It's standardized, so it's less susceptible to error. So for front-end evaluation, you can do interviews and that sort of thing, but it can take a long time to go through that type of information. So surveys tend to be a little bit more easy to administer, and you can tailor them to whatever type of thing that you wish and have a little bit more control over it. So to design an effective survey, you want to have a clear purpose. So what are you exactly trying to get at? This will help you determine the scope of your survey. So you want your questions to benefit you and your study and like whatever outreach that you are wishing to implement. So knowing what you want to be able to do with the data ahead of time, it seems kind of a little counterintuitive at times, but you do kind of want to see what you need this information for. So if you, for example, you want to make a video about genetically modified mosquitoes, before you make that video, gaining information on like what people think about that can benefit your project. So you also want to identify the most logical group to survey. So who should take your survey and what population you choose will determine, how your survey results can be generalized. So this is something that has been interesting for me in my surveying because I was going to places of varying socioeconomic groups. So I wanted to go to gyms, churches, food markets, flea markets, all these different types of places so I could survey a variety of people. However, I've had this shift to online, and I feel like I've lost a little bit of, not control, but it's a little different because I'm using like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and I'm definitely surveying different people than I originally intended to. So as I mentioned before, designing a survey is a 3-step process: constructing it, administering it, and analyzing it. I'm going to talk a little bit about survey construction, go through some ways to design questions, and then I will have you guys go into outbreak, or the little outbreak rooms or breakout sessions. There we go, that's the word. And with this prompt. But first, I'd like to describe how to design a survey. But before I do that, could any of you guys just give me a holler, like if you've done a survey or not before? Like, has anyone here implemented surveys? Oh, I can
quite a bit.
What was that?
I do quite a bit. Yeah.
You do, of course. Yeah. And it's a tool that a lot of extension agents use, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to get into maybe some of the details, but I'm wondering what your opinion is, because most of the groups I meet them kind of one time. We don't meet over a series like maybe some folks in extension do. Yeah. And so I was wondering what your thoughts are on the pre-post survey that you get for like estimating short-term learning. I've heard some conflicting information about doing pre-post at the end, like doing them both at the end, versus what maybe you're suggesting is doing it sort of at the beginning and then also doing it at the end to see if they really learned what they thought they knew. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that's an excellent question. And there is some conflicting information on that because especially for extension, like, you tend to do it, at your event, like you do a pre-post test type of thing, where this is basically trying to identify already what people know so you can tailor the information to them. So that framework that Vanner suggests has you doing some pre-evaluation. So And again, that informal STEM education website is a great resource that it shows a lot of evidence that it's really good to do pre-evaluations and to do like an evaluation at the end. But it doesn't have to be just like a formal pre-post test. You can have people on an index card, like, write, what did you learn, or what do you wish you learned, or what did you gain from this, or whatever, you think you'd like to do for a post evaluation to measure, like, what people did. But how you design your project, it will really vary on the level of involvement that you want your evaluation to be, right? So a really robust project would have something where you design your project based on gaining information from people first, right? So doing some sort of like development planning, really establishing what your goals are, and then you implement your project, and then you can also evaluate them. And you could do pre-post tests when you evaluate it, but it can be a little tricky to, determining what would be best. And sometimes you find out that one way or another, it could be better in a different type of situation. So it takes a lot more work. And I think that's why when we're thinking about outreach and doing outreach, as scientists, like, it's like, it's not the number one concern, right? So it's like, okay, you should do outreach, but you have to do everything else. And that's like on your free time, like that's volunteering, at least maybe, for extension, it's more a part of it, but like as like a general scientist. So it's like, we kind of rush through these things and maybe not go through all the process, but it can actually be valuable. And I guess that's kind of like what I'm getting at with wanting to do front-end evaluation. So does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I kind of.
Yeah, no, I think what you're maybe talking about, if I'm understanding it correctly, is it's almost like a needs assessment. You're trying to know maybe what they don't know or what they're interested in learning, and then you're tailoring your presentation or your program to those things that they want to know more about. In mine, I typically I haven't done that. I haven't done the formal needs assessment and gone through that whole cycle. So I tend to just want to know what they know, and I don't always do the needs assessment. So this is perfect for me. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy. Like, I hope, I know this is silly, but I was just like, I hope that this is like useful to people, or like, that, because I know extension agents do survey. So I was like, I hope I'm just not telling everyone stuff they already know. But like, I felt like for me, it was like a journey going through like learning this stuff, because I was like, oh, I'll just do outreach. I'll make like a cool video about decapitating flies and, put it out there. And I was like, oh, that could actually be bad.
Well, a lot of us don't have like that education curriculum building type background. We're kind of just thrust into the more of the science part. So it's really interesting. Yeah, that's why you're here, Joanie. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so exactly that. And I guess my big takeaway from all this is that I'm trying to convince y'all that outreach can be valuable from a scientific standpoint as well. Like, it does kind of more go into social science, but it can value us in terms, it can be a value of us in terms of actually making an impact and being able to measure that impact at some level, and being more directed in our outreach, so which can help with broader impacts and that sort of thing. So and there are lots of researchers that have been arguing for this, so like you can even back that up. And some of these papers that I've read, like there's this Fishoff that wrote about the need for science communication, and that got published in PANS. So you can, depending on your study, like you can definitely submit for publication and get some real scientific scientific research for it. So yeah, I'm rambling now. So let me get back to this, because I would love y'all to design some survey questions. So when we're designing a survey, I'm going to talk about this survey construction part. So step one for survey construction, you want to have a title that is clear. It seems pretty intuitive, but when I was doing this in my outreach class, some of us had way too lengthy names for our survey. So getting input on that can definitely help. You want it to be concise and easy to understand. So whenever you do a survey formally, you're going to have an introductory statement. This provides a brief summary of your survey's purpose, and you also want to have a consent form. So when you do projects like this and you go through IRB, you're going to have a consent form. And I'll show you guys later on Qualtrics, like my consent form, what it looks like. But you definitely need that because that's part of it. And you want people to feel comfortable that, you know, you'll keep their information confidential. You also want to motivate your respondent to complete the survey. You can do this by having like a raffle for Amazon gift cards, but I've found that just even telling people to, you know, because I don't have a lot of funding for this, so I don't have like Amazon gift cards for everyone, but by telling them that they can be involved in science and that you value that, you know, their input on this, that can be an incentive as well. So you can think of all different types of ways to get people to do your survey. You also want to give them an estimation for the amount of time that it will take to complete the survey. There's been a lot of research that shows that you want to keep surveys short. Survey fatigue is a real thing that happens. So my survey, for example, is 5 minutes long. It's shorter than that. It takes people shorter than that. Like the average time was about 2.5 minutes, but it can take up to 5 minutes. And again, you want to be clear and concise with your questions. So generating the question part is very important because is as clear and as concise is good for your people taking the survey and for you because of the information that you'll get from your survey. So when we're thinking about constructing our questions, there are some key things to consider when making questions. So you want to have directions for completing them. Each question should have a defined objective. So when you have questions, you want them to know that you know, like you answer this or that, but also for you want to have a defined objective for having a question. Like don't just throw in questions for the sake of having questions, really have a reasoning for that question that you have in your survey. You also want to pay very close attention to wording. You want to avoid double-barreled questions, but you also want to avoid maybe offending people or having people misinterpret your question that you have. When you design a survey, you also want to lead with your high interest questions that follow with your demographic information. There's been a lot of research that shows that people can focus better on your survey when you construct it this way. And yeah, so for example, like for my survey, I have all my demographic questions at the end of the survey. Again, keep it brief and then evaluate your survey prior to administering it. So I had focus groups with some peers and my faculty advisor on this, Dr. Striminger. So lots of going back and forth designing the survey. I think it took about 2 months of going back and forth before we had something that we were comfortable with putting out to have people take. So you can get creative with this too, but you know, it can be tricky because it's like you can have questions that, for example, like these open-ended questions you can get a lot of information from them, but then you will have to sift through that information, but you might get something that you didn't anticipate from your respondents. So open-ended questions are a way to provide respondents to express themselves in their own words. These questions have no correct answers like the test type questions. And you want them to be in a short answer format. Think of like short answer type quizzes, but you can get some interesting things. So for my survey, I had a question that asked people what is their preferred way to receive scientific content, and I got some interesting stuff from that. So I'll go through that at the end of it because I want to get through these so y'all can make some questions. So closed-minded questions, these ones, although they seem very concise and straightforward, they're very difficult to write because again, you want the wording to be good and that people can understand the question. You don't want them to, you know, miss the information, and you know, these are easy to to standardize, analyze statistically. So that's where the value is in them. But you do have this trade-off where you may lose some pertinent information that you couldn't capture by having that question. One way around that is to have an other category on that, and that can help get around that. But again, you might not know what you get from that type of thing. There's also the classical Likert scale type questions, which offers a rank of options. So this is best suited to measure attitudes. For example, on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being very satisfied, 1 being very dissatisfied, please indicate like how you agree with the following statements. And like, for example, for one of mine, I had that genetically modified insects are safe for the environment. So that would be on a scale from 1 to 5, like how much do you agree or disagree? So it wasn't how satisfied or dissatisfied, but it was like, how much do you agree or disagree would be an example of a Likert scale question. So multiple choice type questions are also questions you can use. So these are ones where you could have a test type, but also just trying to get at what they might be interested in. For scientific type surveys for research, these questions tend to be more test type style questions, at least in my experience, like with the information that you're gaining from your audience to see maybe like where their gap in their knowledge is. Then you have categorical type questions, which offers categories. So for my demographic information, I had it like this, where I asked people what their race was, and I had a bunch of options where people could pick. And I also did put an other. So if I missed something, people could write in what, they were, or they could choose to not answer. It's totally up to them. You can also do ordinal type questions, which has a rank of options, but the distance between the ranks is not uniform. So this is a way to, see what people, that they can put a variable in relationship to another set of variables. I didn't use this particular type of question in my survey, but it's something that you can use if you think it's useful for what you're trying to get. Interval type questions. This is similar to ordinal, but you have intervals between the spaces. And then we have numerical. So these measure ratio variables, which are similar to interval variables, but the answer must be a real number. So example, like you're asking, what is your height in inches? Or, what is your weight in pounds or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and stop. And I have an activity for y'all. So I want to, where's my PowerPoint? Okay, I closed it. I got to open up my PowerPoint. So I have a prompt for y'all, and I'd like you to, can I do breakout rooms? Is that possible to do?
Ooh, good question. Let me do some digging.
I see breakout rooms as a possibility.
Do you? Okay, I gave you host controls, Erin, so you have all the power. So you might
Okay.
wanna...
It says I have a few options. How many breakout rooms would you like?
Okay. First, can we see the slide here, the activity?
Yep,
We see
it's
it.
on there. Yep.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, so I'd like to have breakout rooms, and the goal is to construct 2 to 3 survey questions using any of the different formats that I discuss. So the prompts for y'all is, you are a new entomology extension agent. You receive a task to present at a local entomology club. You are interested in learning more about your attendees, particularly their demographics and knowledge base. So I guess I can copy and paste this into the thing too, in case.
Do you want 3 rooms, Joanie? Does that sound good?
Yeah, 3 rooms sounds great.
I've never done this before. So this is me, an extension on the fly.
It's all good. Yeah, I was wondering how I could, okay, join. I'm going to join one. So we're going to join a room.
Okay. Is this happening?
Erin, so I realized that I couldn't talk to you in the breakout room, and then I had to come back into the regular room. So Yeah, so I realized that I needed to do that because it kept saying, you're not in this room. I'm like, well, it's not letting me respond to her. So
Okay. Do you want me to bring people back or give them like a
Yeah.
2-minute warning?
give them 2 more minutes and yeah, give them 2 minutes. And I guess I feel bad because like I've never done this before. So I should
Neither
have,
have I.
yeah, I should have said, yeah, like 5 minutes and that, you don't know anything about you. They're like, where am I presenting to? Like, what do they know? And it's like, well, this is, yeah, like the way to find
I
that out.
visited all the rooms and there was plenty of chatter. So I think, people are just doing it. Yeah.
Good. I'm so happy. I was like, I was trying to practice this with my friends and doing it with them. I was like, I was like, I want to make it interactive, but I
Well,
don't
you're
know
doing
how
a good
long.
job.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter in this chat box of
Good.
additional things too. So people are doing what we hope for. So that's, yeah, really good. I think as best as we can hope for with the Zoom. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess I'm not even gonna have time to go over to Qualtrics, but I
Okay.
guess it's just I can, show people and because you can use SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics.
Yeah.
It's just Qualtrics, you've used Qualtrics, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's more like formal and
I used it so much, the people of Qualtrics said, we want to help you. And I don't know, I was like, what? And I'm a little bit suspicious, but they said like, we know that you create a lot of surveys. And I think they wanted to like get me like to the next level. And I was like, no, I'm on the Iowa State, I'm not bumping
Yeah.
up to anything else. So
because I was talking to Rhonda about it, about how I'm like, how can I reach more people? You can spend like money to like go out to like,
yes,
but it's a lot. It's like thousands of dollars to like, I was like, whoa, it's so
they
crazy.
wanted to help find more people. And I was like, I don't have any trouble finding people. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm going to bring everybody back. I think, let's hope.
Let's hope.
Oh, they said breakout rooms will close. Okay. So I think everybody's just going to come back.
Bring them back.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done this before, so super interesting to give it a try with like real people.
I
Usually
know.
people are pretty forgiving on this ShareFair thing, so they're trying
I'm
to.
glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I originally, when it was going to be in person, I wanted to like have like all these materials so people could construct surveys, have like index cards, have like, like show them like how to interview people. And it's like, oh, I can't do that.
Next time, maybe the next ESA will be in person and we could do this again. I think Brian and I are interested in kind of keeping it going.
I'll have some results too for the whole study. It'd be good.
Yes, great. Okay, they should be coming back in. My little prompt says it's going to close down. So we have a few more minutes for whatever else you feel like doing.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like people to share some other stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yay. Okay. It was the first time for Erin and I doing the breakout sessions. So I apologize. I should have explained that you have like 5 minutes or so to do this and that, basically you are this extension entomologist and they just told you to go to an entomology club. So the goal was for you to find out like, what the heck am I doing? So would any of y'all mind sharing some of the questions you came up with your group on how you would go about finding out about your audience for this entomology club?
I would share those, but they're currently in review by the IRB, so I just don't feel like, sorry. I was trying to tie some things together. We just real quick, Gwen made the connection to, K through 12 education and kind of this, there's a lot of acronyms out there, but KWL. So what do you know? What do you want to know? And what did you learn?
Yeah.
We're kind of thinking about that in this, we were really simple with our questions, which is, what do you know? Just kind of get kind of open-ended, but this whole, we spent a lot of time talking about the question part. Like, what do you want to learn? What questions do you really want to have answered? So we thought with an entomological club, they probably know more than others. So what are some of the big questions that we could kind of focus on with the time we have with them to make it more effective? But
yeah.
Sorry, I need to buzz out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was great. Like, mentioning, okay, so it is an entomology club. So what do they already know about entomology? How can I make the time presenting at this club more valuable, right? So, instead of doing outreach where you go, hey, I'm going to go to this entomology club and just teach them about bugs, and then you like go over a bunch of stuff they already know, they're going to probably feel a little disappointed that, you know, hey, I was hoping to maybe know a little bit more about entomology through, you know, an actual entomologist, or, you know, not an actual entomologist, but a professional entomologist. There we go. So anybody else? Oh, age range. Perfect. Yeah. So getting an age range, again, like, you know, are you talking to children or adults? So like for my survey, I wanted to target adults. So I have, if you're 18 years or older, and then I have age ranges within my survey, because I don't want to, you know, it's not that I don't want to do outreach with children, but for my particular study, I'm more geared towards adults and what they know or don't know. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we had started writing a question about sort of people's reportings on how much they think they know about insects, which is kind of subjective, but we were trying to go in a direction of how much people know and what they want to do. Like, do they want to learn more? Do they want to spread their knowledge? So maybe that could be useful for figuring out what the level of content of your presentation would be.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah, like I have a question for, on my survey, an open-ended question that asks people to list what they're curious about or want to know about genetically modified organisms. And I received all kinds of responses, and it, like I got responses like, hey, I actually don't know a lot. But then I also got answers that said, I would like long-term studies about what happens to GMOs over time and how they break down the environment. That kind of cues into me that this person might actually know a little bit more. And then when I refer back to my my scale, like Likert type questions, I can see how they actually feel about GMOs and understand like, okay, yeah, this person isn't really that worried about genetically modified insects, but they might be worried about this particular thing. But by the responses that they're giving me, I can definitely tell that, hey, maybe this person doesn't need to know about this particular area. And if I do want to do outreach with this type of person, I need to, you know, have a different strategy than just explaining like basic, you know, what they are, like why they're safe or whatever the study is. So that's perfect. Okay, I guess we are running short on time. I thought honestly that I would be like trying to keep up with the time, you know, but okay. So I love this, and I want to keep asking people what they did, but this is perfect. And I think that you guys are definitely on board with asking the types of questions, you know, to gain information for like this general prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and spend the last 5 minutes to talk to y'all about how I'm doing my stuff and just some general findings that I've gained from it. So I'm using Qualtrics. I wanted to show you guys Qualtrics, but unfortunately we won't have time to go over that. But Qualtrics is basically a surveying tool. It's like SurveyMonkey, but a little bit more professional. You can make it as involved or it's not involved as you want. Erin has a lot of experience with Qualtrics as well. So if you have any questions about Qualtrics, you can feel free to email me. Yeah, so I found it to be very valuable, and it has like nice little things for like doing like general statistics when you're like looking at it. Very easy to send out links, that sort of thing. So as I mentioned earlier in this, I originally was going to do in-person surveys, and I switched to online this summer, and I found that online surveying is complex. I've received mostly white and educated respondents, very minimal from like other groups, mostly in this area, like about 80% of my respondents. I had 227 responses, and it was mostly in that category. So what I'm finding is that by sharing my links through Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, mostly like general science groups, entomology groups, and some other like non-science groups. But a lot of people tend to be that are interested in doing a science survey already kind of know about science, is what I'm finding with doing online surveys. So again, I mentioned that I have an open-ended question, and I've gotten a lot of like educated responses for this. I've received some that, you know, they might not know a lot about it, but I'm not seeing right now any correlations with demographics and like their responses. So there's something more complex going on than just general demographics. There's probably some sort of bubble, like, communication bubble that I'm experiencing, like echo chamber type stuff. So I did get a useful tidbit of information where I had an open-ended question about perceived ways to receive scientific content. Of my 227 survey responses, 129 people left comments. And this is just some generals, like sifting through the information. 29 people said that they like to see science content on YouTube. 21 responded that they like scientific journals. 12 responded blog, 7 responded Facebook, 3 responded with podcasts. Interestingly, the people that did like YouTube did seem to be the people that responded with less that they knew about GMOs, like they felt like they knew about GMOs. But for my questions that I asked about, actually asking what a genetically modified organism is, and does gene expression differences happen, and do other insects have the ability to manipulate the gene expression of other insects, like for example parasitoids, they said yeah, that does happen. So I think that this has been interesting for me to maybe think about the particular audience that I do want to approach, because I was hoping to have certain socioeconomic groups that I could communicate omics technologies and genetically modified insects like subjects to. But I'm finding that if I'm doing online surveys, I need to think a little bit more about which groups I want to develop science outreach for. And it may be that I do end up communicating to a group that knows a lot about science, but wants to know more, and maybe have them get more on board with it and become like citizen scientists themselves and being more active with science. Or I may try to figure out a way to survey other people and get a more diverse socioeconomic group. So that's all I have for y'all. I think we have 1 minute for questions. So yeah.
If you wanted to posit these questions to places that were more outside the scientific community,
Yes.
how would you start doing that?
So I originally was going, like, as I mentioned, I had in-person surveys and I was going to different areas around Texas. So my plan was to go to San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, Austin, maybe some small towns as well. I have some small towns as well. So like large cities, small cities, or small towns, excuse me, and go to different things like churches and gyms and places like that. So in my IRB, I had like this list of, I had to list out all the types of places I wanted to go and give them a general idea. But I received a message from my IRB that I had to switch. I couldn't do in-person surveys. If I wanted to continue, I had to like do it different. So I was like, okay, I'll do it online. It'll be easy enough. But I found that it's actually not as easy as I thought it would be. So that's where I'm at.
So for these kinds of online surveys, if you wanted to reach a demographic that was perhaps not as well versed in science, where would you recommend starting?
Yeah, so I started off with just friends. That was my obviously there's bias because I know a lot of scientists, but I had them share it with their family and their non-science friends. And I've done cosplay, so I like shared on some cosplay groups, and just like science fiction type, groups. And that's where I was sending out surveys. I also did a couple links on Twitter, and then I just like contacted people personally that were my friends that weren't scientists to share it with their friends and family. So there's definitely like, you don't have as much control in what you're doing. And of course, if you were to pose a survey in an entomology group, you may get people that know a little bit about science, but that doesn't necessarily that's not necessarily a guarantee. So like, I didn't know, but yeah, so I think, and if I wanted to push out of these groups, and you can do that with Qualtrics, but it costs money to have them do a more robust type of study. And I don't have that kind of funding. So I think I just need to be a little bit more creative. I wanted to end my survey. Well, I ended my survey on the 1st of November. And yeah, now I'm deciding if I just want to work with what I have and see, what kind of project I could develop from that, because I'm still analyzing all my results from that. I began to look at that. Or if I do the survey in a different way, but I'm figuring that out right now.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time. I know a lot of people are jumping on other ESA events and have teaching and everything else going on. So just want to say thanks, Jody. This is awesome. I don't know if most of us have thought as deeply as you have about evaluation when it comes to extension, outreach, just kind of reaching different audiences. So I really appreciate your expertise, all the resources that people shared. Again, if you know anyone that's interested in SciComm, we'll have this recording posted on a YouTube channel you'll be able to access and the ESA program. And then, spoiler alert, we'll keep that YouTube channel open. So if you have folks that they couldn't afford to attend ESA, or maybe they're not entomologists, just in your other networks, I think with Joanie's permission, we'll be able to keep that link live for a little bit longer for those that might be interested. So thank you guys all for joining. Our next session will be at 2:00 Eastern time, 1:00 Central time, trying to get a little bit more engaging with social media. So thank you all for participating and enjoyed all the extra conversation. Really appreciate it. Thank you.